watching Let's Chat.
We are still into the 100 deadliest days of summer. Think about that, the 100 deadliest days of summer. How do you put yourself and your family at a much lower risk for getting involved in one of these terrible highway accidents? For that, we turn to the expert. It is Mark Warren from Warren and Griffin. Typically,
ain't it good to be alive
and in Tennessee?
Be in Tennessee.
Yes, sir, it
my
is.
Good man. It's also
good to see you, my
good
brother.
to see you, man. It's always good to be on Let's Chat. I mean, your show and your producer, David, and what you do on this show every day, professionalism. It's such an important show to talk about what you talk today.
Well,
you know, local businesses, community outreach, getting the word out. And I just want to thank you for that. I think that we take this show for granted. If you go to other cities and you get up in the morning and watch their local news, usually it's syndicated. I mean, this is great to have this half hour put in our day where we can catch up to things that are going on in our community. And I want to thank you and all the people back there that make this show work every day.
Thank you. It is a labor of love, and we are certainly happy.
You can certainly see it's a labor of love.
100 deadliest days of summer. That remark carries a lot of weight, and you have shown me statistics, and you can find them for yourself.
Right.
Just how deadly these days of summer are, and you know why.
Yeah, well, especially the 100 days, it runs to Labor Day, and it's when our teenage drivers are on the road. And it's unfortunate now that there's not driver's ed in the high school classrooms.
True.
So the things that I'm going to touch on today are really things that I learned in driver's ed before I got my driver's license.
Right.
You know, for example, especially in Chattanooga, Tennessee, where we have I-24 and I-75 and all the trucks on the road.
Yep.
You know, big rigs, big danger. And young drivers have got to appreciate that these big rigs carry certain differences that a car doesn't have. For example, large blind spots. Large blind spots. You don't learn about this in driver's ed, but you know, truckers have huge blind spots where the car vanishes.
Yep.
And it disappears. And the trucker has no way of knowing when you're in a blind spot. Now, a good trucker, of course, is keeping an eye on the highway behind him, you know, but if you end up in a trucker's blind spot, and a trucker has a vantage point way down the highway where there's a road on the side, a car on the side of the road, they have to move over. And so if you're in the blind spot, when they're moving over, we got problems.
Truckers not only have huge blind spots, they also have huge braking distances. You and I take our braking distance for granted a lot of times.
Yes.
Truckers will take 8, 10, 12 times longer to stop their rig when they're going at half the speed your car is.
Sure, and so you don't want to follow too closely behind truckers. You want to give them space that if something happens in front of them, you have an opportunity to dodge their rig, because you're exactly right. It takes a lot longer for them to stop. And when they don't stop, catastrophic things can happen.
Yeah, and do every day.
Right, and another thing also is try not to pass the trucker on the passenger side of the trucker. Once again, it's a blind spot issue, but this is going to happen if you drive in Chattanooga going up the ridge cut.
Sure.
Okay, these truckers get in the wrong lane. They're in the fast lane and they're gearing down to get up that hill, and you have the temptation, I know I do, to pass on the passenger side in their blind spot. That's not wise. That's not wise at all. So, you know, drive defensively around truckers.
Yep. And
you know,
defensive driving and driver's education, I firmly think they should be brought back to our schools, and not just an elective. I think it ought to be required.
Absolutely.
Eventually, everyone's going to be driving. You need every tool at your disposal to do so safely. And I fielded an email from one of your more recent visits where we were talking about proper, not just roadway, but highway safety. And the gist of it was like you and I were talking down to some of the younger drivers with less experience, and I wrote back, nothing could be further from the truth. We're doing this out of concern.
Absolutely.
Because kids have got to start somewhere.
Yes.
And you know as well as I do, if you're a youngster just starting to drive, you're more than likely to have an accident from 16 up through 22 or 23.
Well, because you're more likely.
It's a concern.
Well, you're driving with kids in the car. I mean, the number one cause of teenage car accidents are passengers in the car.
Right.
You know, as a parent, try to limit the number of passengers in the car. You know, it'd be great if you could just have the front seat passenger and not distractions in the back seat where you're sharing, you know, TikTok videos to the driver as they're going down the road. Because that's what happens.
Yeah.
You know, that's what happens. And so they're distracted, not only talking on the phone or looking down at text messages, but other passengers. So as a parent, we have to be also a safety advocate for our children and just harp on it.
Yeah.
You got to harp on that.
You certainly do.
Putting your phone away.
And you have to do it time after time after time. And I'll tell you, if you have any questions about roadway safety, highway or interstate safety, the folks at Warren and Griffin are literally a treasure trove of knowledge, and they will be happy to share that knowledge with you at any point. WarrenandGriffin.com, WarrenandGriffin.com. See Mark Warren. Hope you have a great rest of the summer.
Thank you, Chip.
We will see you here in a few weeks.
I will be here.
Make sure and join us here today at noon.
Go Vols.